right, we're going to get into the next hand here, which really is like, man, it's the epitome of, you know, making money at low stakes and not being scared of the nuts. We're not going to do any blurring here because of the fact that there are so many hands involved, but the people that are involved are going to be Loretta here in seat 3 on the button and Robert Y, who is under the gun +3, who had supposedly been playing rather tight. So Robert Y is going to raise from under the gun +3. He's going to open from like whatever MP1, MP2. And Loretta calls here with 9-8 of diamonds, which I think is perfectly fine. She's getting 25x on the button. So she makes the call. The small blind here, Si Wong calls, and you can see the stack depth of this type of game. By the way, Stones does a match the stack. That's why these games are so deep. Like you can actually go and play 1-3 and buy in for any amount to match the stack. So this is like the crux of like a good 5-5 like LA game, which we don't see all that often. So Robert here, the guy we saw from last hand, is driving this action as the preflop raiser, basically from MP2. And we see a board here of Jack 10-3 with a couple of clubs. This is sometimes the problem with calling with specifically 9-8, and that is that the top end of the straight, when it comes in with 9-8, fills ace-king against the preflop raiser. I mean, we don't have to be necessarily worried about like, ghosts under the bed, but it's something to be said for that. So Robert here is going to bet out. And by the way, like this is not the type of board, if I were to raise with rags, that I would bet out on against 3 people, which is part of the reason why I'm not raising with this hand at this particular level. If I was playing in this specific game where I was deep at 1-3, I wouldn't be trying to like run people over all that much. You're just never really going to get a ton of folds, and it's very unlikely that you have the best hand here. He makes a continuation bet. Loretta's going to call on the button, and Viet here under the gun, he folds king 10, so he does not overcall, and we are now heads up, and Robert here is going to bet once again. It took a second for the graphics to basically catch up. So this is the type of card that we're talking about here. The turn's a queen of hearts. And if you're playing against like an advanced level type of player, any type of player really that would have a king X of hearts type of hand or an ace X of hearts type of hand would double barrel this turn heads up against what might be perceived against a somewhat of a passive type of player. We don't know anything about Loretta. I'm using that female stereotype. Don't kill me, guys. But if I picked up like, if I had ace 5 of hearts, I mean, I wouldn't be c-betting into 4 people. That's why some of these spots are a little bit weird. But I always like to try to rep ace king, especially if I pick up equity. Robert here is going to bet again, and he's going to bet 75 into 153, and Loretta just calls. Now, it's interesting because she only has 294 left here, whether or not this is a raise or it's just a call, because we always have to be concerned about our perceived range, and I can actually see sometimes just calling here. And the reason why is because if we're just calling, we're hoping for a blank river, and if the guy checks the river, it's an easy bet. The problem sometimes is when you raise when ace-king comes in, you look very strong as a field caller on the flop, meaning that like when you're raising, you're always having 2-pair plus, sometimes a set. It's specifically the trouble with 9-8, especially if we had a deeper stack. Robert bet 75 and we call. I would tend, we don't have any blockers for clubs or hearts, which is a problem. But with this stack size, I would still tend to probably just raise and not fold here. I know, yeah, whatever, we're 175 big blinds deep, but I'm not just going to give him ace-king when he bets into 3 people, 3 or 4 people, even though he ended up betting into 3 or 4 people with 10-8. But I know at this level, people aren't folding sets. They're not folding 2-pair. They're not folding kings. A lot of them aren't folding aces. So sometimes I actually have to go thinner at the lower level with a second nut hand just because people just aren't going to fold. He might not fold king queen. So it is what it is. Like, I don't need to do stack protection at this level. I'm probably going to raise right now with 9-8 and just get it in. I'm not going to call and risk some sort of action killer card coming. Now, speaking of action cards, killer cards coming, front door clubs come in here at the end. The 6 of clubs, so it brings in a front door flush. And you better believe if I had played this hand like Loretta, where this guy checks at the end, I am betting 9-8. I don't care. Sure. Does he have all the 16 quote unquote combos of ace king? Yes, he does. Is he going to fold them? Probably not at this level, but what about every other hand that he has? Aces, kings, sets of tens, jacks, queen jack, sets of queens, sets of jacks. Forget about it. That's part of the reason why I'm raising turn. But if you're, similar to the first hand that we looked at, if you're only going to call turn, if you're going to play a hand defensively in some sort of way, you have to make up for that at the end. Like, there's no way in hell that I'm checking back the river and it goes check, check. She checks it back. Now, because we know that Robert has 10-8, would he call at the end? Probably not. That doesn't matter, though, because there are many hands at a 1-3 game that he might call with, like I said, sets of tens, sets of jacks, sets of queens, queen jack, kings, aces. I mean, it goes on and on and on. You start to do the combinatorics. If you're scared that he might fold out, if you like move all in, make a smaller bet size. But if you're not going to raise the turn, you have to bet the river. So, the moral of this video already coming out, and sometimes I don't figure it out until I get through all the hands, is that if you're going to play, 4th Street defensively, you have to make up for it at the end on the river on 5th Street.